We're continuing our conversation with the candidates running to be the next MLA for Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright in the Alberta provincial election. I'm here today with Tiggerly Campbell, representing the Green Party of Alberta. Tigger, thanks for taking some time to talk with us today.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's great to be talking with you. Something that I've kind of been asking all the candidates, because some are a little more familiar than others. I know you've done a lot of stuff, especially here in Lloydminster, but I'll give you a chance to tell people a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Tiggerly Campbell. I've been here in Lloyd since 2015. I moved here from Edmonton, and actually when I moved from Edmonton, I was unhoused there and in the midst of my addiction. So I came here and I got clean and sober. I'm in my 7th year of sobriety. And thank you. I'm a mom of 3. And I'm also co-founder of a nonprofit, Lloydminster and Vermilion for Equity Foundation.
And so now you're running to be the next MLA in this area. I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about why you decided to make that jump and run for public office.
For sure. So I decided to run because there's a large demographic of people here that kind of get swept under the rug and forgotten about. So I feel like I would be a good representative of them and just make sure that everyone in the riding has a voice and is accounted for, especially when we're starting to create change in policies. I just want to make sure that everyone has a voice and is represented.
And when you look across Alberta, a lot of ridings only have a UCP candidate and an NDP candidate. Here, there's a lot of different options. You're running under the Green Party of Alberta. So I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about why the Green Party.
Yeah, for sure. So I chose, technically the Green Party chose me, but a lot of their policies and their values align with my own, especially when it comes to funding social services and our community, addressing the healthcare crisis, addressing food insecurity, and then also the dedication to Indigenous sovereignty and governance.
So, and you talked about some issues there. I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about some other things, or you can expand on some of those issues that you think are important and are pushing you to run. And also, if you're elected, like what are some things that you think are very important that you want to kind of focus on?
Yeah, absolutely. So these 4 are basically what I hear most when I'm door knocking, that like for poverty and for our crime here especially, I feel like if we funded our social services, especially our mental health services and our addiction services, then we would kind of curb the amount of crime. And if we address poverty, that actually saves us money in the long run. And then healthcare, that's another big one that gets brought up too when I'm door knocking. We've seen it where our emergency rooms don't have doctors, or our maternity wards don't have doctors, and that's absolutely terrifying. We definitely need to fund our healthcare system, implement recruitment strategy, and encourage people by giving them a UBI, or universal basic income, and encourage them to go to school to become our doctors, our nurses, and our healthcare practitioners. Food insecurity, I already touched on UBI, but I feel like if we gave everyone the basic necessities, then that would really address the amount of food insecure families that we have in our riding. And then for our Indigenous relations, the Green Party, it's dedicated to Indigenous sovereignty. Obviously, they are aware and acknowledge the genocide of Indigenous peoples here in Canada, and they are hoping to use and implement UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous the rights of Indigenous people, and implement that as a framework. So those are the policies that really align with me. Also, addressing the climate crisis, I feel like that is absolutely important that we address it, but I don't feel like we can have climate justice without economic justice.
So let's talk about in this, the UCP and the NDP are the two parties that are most likely going to be forming the next government. So if you end up being elected or another Green MLA across the province, it seems like that they'll have a little bit of power or maybe a little bit of sway to kind of push things. So I'll give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that you would try and do if you're an MLA to kind of maybe influence things in either party, or which party would you maybe work with, or I'll let you get you to kind of elaborate on that.
So I feel like I'm a Green through and through.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I really think that addressing poverty is a huge thing right now. Like I said before, it will save us money. So I think we spend about $9.2 to $9.5 billion on reactionary measures. So that's the draw on our healthcare system, that's the draw on our justice system, and lost opportunities. So we could use that money to fund our social services and other areas that do need funding, because that's one of the questions that gets brought up the most is, where is this money going to come from?
Yeah.
Also, I feel like if we got our fair share in royalties, bumped us to 35 cents on the dollar for our royalties, and then increased our corporate taxes from 8% to 12%, which is the standard across the board. 12% is the standard. We have the lowest, our corporations here in Alberta pay the lowest amount in taxes. Yeah. So I feel like if we could address those two things, save us money, and then invest in our communities and invest in our social services, I feel like that would enhance the overall well-being of everybody in our riding.
All right, T-Girl, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today. It was great catching up with you.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.